All right. Thank you so much, JoAnn, for being here with me today. I don't think that we've ever met before
No.
this. So, would you mind introducing yourself for us?
Well, I'd be glad to. I want you to know that I'm going to be 76 years old next week, and this is the best time of my life. This is a story I've come through, and for me, it has a happy ending, albeit a very long one. So, um, this is the best and happiest time of my life. Every day, I am a carbohydrate addict. Every day I have a plan. Some days I do better than others, and I'm to the point where I don't beat myself up if I fall, but I get right back up. Um, I come from a family of obese women and thin men. And my family, my extended family, is all very addicted. I will read the kind of addicts in my family: alcoholics, drug, heroin use, smokers, rageaholics, narcissists, high drama, and pedophiles. And it's time we held ourselves accountable as a family and shed light on this. And I've had the courage to do that. And my addiction began, let me just pull up my picture that I have here. They always go dead. My addiction started when I was 7.5 years old. This is me making my first communion at the end of August 1954 in Connecticut. And the week before that, I had been sexually abused and beaten by my father, who believed it was my fault. I'm freaking 7.5 years old. I shut down my entire life on that day. And it's taken a while for me to recognize, without sounding like a victim, that I held on to that anger. I held on to that feeling because I didn't know what to do with it until finally I shed light on it and was able to get help for first myself and then others. So that's the genesis and the evolvement of my addiction to food. I ate and ate and ate, but being a little child, I never gained any weight until I was 14. And then that was just temporary, and that, was going through puberty. And I was thin until I was 40. But I always felt I wasn't good enough. I was told I wasn't good enough. I showed them all. And I am good enough. I know that now. But I was so empty for everything. And I was just like, I couldn't be filled. My brother John said, make sure I say, if I saw food, I ate it. I didn't differentiate between eating raw meatloaf or, knacking at the cake somebody made. It just all went up and culminated in my weighing 280 pounds on my 50th birthday. I lost some of that weight. I lost 50 of that pounds. And when I moved to Florida, when I was 65, 11 years ago, I weighed 230. And then I had a major heart event. And then I had to decide whether I wanted to live or die. And then I started taking charge. So I've only been in charge for 10, 11 years now of my life. And every year it gets better and better and better. And I wish I knew what I know now back then, but everybody does. So I came to it late, but I came to it, and I'm here to say, you can look this and you can do it. You can really do it. But it took me a while, and I did it slowly and in small, deliberate steps. So it came
Yeah.
that
And
way.
I want to totally get to that place because I'm really curious to know what that process looked like. But before you go there, because I know you've probably got some really great information for us, can you talk a little bit about what role food played in your life before all of that, right? So, like the first, we'll say roughly 50 years,
Mhm.
where, right, from the day you're 7.5 to somewhere in your 60s after this heart event, how did food show up? Was it was it your friend? Was it your stress relief? Did it get in the way
Yes.
of relationship? Did it get in the way of jobs? Or how did that look?
It got in the way of absolutely everything because I let it. I was always thinking about what I was going to eat. I did not take care of myself. I made some bad career decisions, which everybody does, but I, I I said yes to everything, and I did not say yes to myself. I did not sleep. I worked from probably 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and then probably had another hour drive home. I did not sleep. I had no idea. I mean, it's you sleep when you're dead, but I needed sleep. My stress level of scattering myself was just ridiculous. I would never allow that now. I have boundaries now. I didn't exercise. I was very fat. Um, and I did not eat right. I grabbed fast food everywhere. No wonder I got heart disease. So it was a giant wake up call um, when I had my heart event, which was not a heart attack. It was aortic stenosis and some blocked arteries. So I had triple bypass and a new aortic valve and part valve. So uh, I decided I wanted to live then, and started making some different choices, but certainly not enough. Certainly not gone low carb and got really into a good diet. But I was able to get down to the low 200s. I think I got down to 202 and then froze there for a couple of years. Then I found low carb, and all of a sudden my weight was under 200 for the first time since 1988. And then I was able to control my voracious appetite because it was very different at this point. I was full. I did not want to eat anymore. I did not have the need to stuff myself. And I got healthier, and I got down to the 150s and have stayed there ever since. I'd like to be 10 pounds lighter, maybe 15. But where I've come has been a tremendous journey, and I don't need to beat myself up, but I still would like to lose it. I would like to say I was half of what I was before. Maybe that's not practical at my age, but uh, that's how it kind of came around. And
Yeah.
well,
Can you
one of the
take
key,
us? Oh,
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. One of the key things is when I got diabetic retinopathy, and the thought of losing my eyes was probably even more threatening to me than losing my life. So the low carb, I keep that in check. That has not progressed. Of course, I have a fabulous retinologist, but it has not progressed. And diabetes is in remission, arthritis is in remission, my brain is better. Um, we're just reading the work of Chris Palmer, and it's phenomenal. So I just feel good. I want to get up and do things every day, and I have my healthy routines, and so that's addiction. Addiction ruined my whole life. I can't I can't imagine what it could have been like, nor do I go there. What I have is now and the power to be in the now and to, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm doing some fun things. So life is good. The last
Can you
round will be great.
Yeah, well, for sure. Will you
Yeah.
take us back to these health issues that you said, okay, you were like, you had this heart event, you're kind of at this crossroads. Do I continue what I'm doing and die, or do I make some changes and better my odds that I'm going to live? You said you didn't make big changes in the beginning. Can you kind of talk about like what changes you did start making? Like was the aha more about like the weight or the food? Like what can you kind of
Well,
piece that together for us? Yeah.
always been focused on my weight because, growing up in the house I did, uh, I was told my mother was very beautiful, and uh, everybody loved my mother. They really didn't. Um, they really didn't. And now that I'm thin, I look like my mother, which is frightening. But let's see, where am I going with this? Let's see. But Yeah, I made small changes. Like my daughter dragged me from the hospital. She flew in from yeah, where did she live? San Francisco. And she took care of me for 3 weeks, so I didn't have to go to a home. So every day she was dragging me up and down the street and making sure I walked. See, I never exercised. So this was all new. She had to drive me everywhere because I couldn't drive for a month because of the surgery. And I got into some small good habits like walking around the block. So all I could do. And I started there. And I started small. And now I walk, not so much early in the morning as I used to, but when it gets warm enough. And I walk. And that started with that. And then it started with um, eating healthier foods and not eating at meals. I made some changes. You're not allowed to eat in the living room. Sometimes I break that. But just setting up habits and not bringing things into the house that in a weak moment might trigger me because I have
So
my,
were you so
yeah.
you were like taking things out and adding things at the same time? Like you were adding foods and taking foods out, or did you just add foods in?
No, I took a lot of foods out. I stopped buying anything processed. Um, I don't have binge foods in the house. I cannot have a potato chip in the house. I don't have a sweet tooth, but I have a greasy, salty bread tooth,
Yeah.
grains. I love that. If I make something, I have to have an exit strategy for it. Um, I make my friend's husband responsible for getting it all packaged up. I'll package it up. He has to take it away, and he's glad to do that. And because he gets the leftovers.
So when you were getting these things out, were you making those decisions based on your health, or did you know at the time this is addiction? I am addicted to these things and I have to get them out of the house, like if as if I were an alcoholic and I have to get every last drop of
I
alcohol
was
out.
coming into that realization that I was an addict, and none of my doctors at the time, those are my Boston doctors. I've got good doctors here in Florida, but you know what? I really look hard and I don't put up with anything. I basically go to the University of Florida and have wonderful doctors up there. But I didn't have the conscience that I was an addict because food addiction was not recognized. And I was laughed at by many of my healthcare people. Uh, Things were missed, all with my past doctors in Boston. And when I got down here, um, I was in a regional hospital and had my heart surgery, and it went really well because it was known for doing hearts, and I got through that just fine. And I was wondering why it was missed by my doctors up at Leahy Clinic in the Boston area, and it was fixed. It was fixed with great humanity and grace And it was one of the first moments I was truly vulnerable. I just had to give myself over. If I'm not a religious person. Every clergyman who wanted to visit me was allowed in, and I just figured cover it from all angles. Lovely Jewish rabbi came in, um, a Catholic priest. I let him in too, um, and lots of ministers, and then within my coaching group, we got a whole lot of prayer circles going. And I came through it, and that was the same surgery that killed my beloved Aunt Peggy, the same surgery. And I
See,
lived. And she,
yes, you get through the surgery,
and
daughter comes, she's helping you, you're making these small, like unbeknownst to you,
small
you're starting
and
to create these new, yeah,
small new behaviors. It would have overwhelmed me if I had to look at the entire picture.
yes.
And,
So
and yeah.
when you remove those things, you said, okay, I have a salty, oily
Oh,
grain
yeah,
tooth.
potato chips, popcorn.
Yeah,
I love those types of things. I could leave a cake and it would go stale.
yeah, it's
So
the
those,
other things. So when you started removing them, you were thinking more along the lines of health, it sounds like. You weren't quite aware that this was an
yeah,
addiction.
yeah.
Was it, can you kind of talk about that? Like, was it difficult for you to make that decision and leave them behind? Did you crave those things? Did you like go back to them, or how did like kind of
Oh,
walk us through what was that like?
it took a while to give up the potato chips, but I would do things like buy a bag this big, not the bag this big. Um, uh, I liked popcorn because it was good roughage. Um, yeah, those I gave up slowly. I wasn't moderating. I had a plan of total abstaining, but I gave myself some grace around that. And I just don't buy things that aren't real food now where I am. I buy nice fish. I spend the money on good fish and meats. I no longer like poultry, which is funny. I It just is bland to me. I like beef and lamb, and I I eat a lot of protein. Um, I'm trying to cut the fat down a little bit because sometimes it's makes me a little crazy. Um, and cutting out acidic foods. Um, then I just discovered intermittent fasting, which cured all of my uh, gastric reflux at night. Gone, unless I eat dinner. And
So eating too late. So you eat,
yeah,
but it's just like you cut yourself off as far as the kitchen is closed by a certain time so that you don't have this negative
I
experience.
yes, but I may go in and get some bone broth or something healthy, or make myself a cup of tea. But
Okay.
as recently as last month, I went to uh, the low carb metabolic health workshop where I met JoAnn, who suggested I be on this podcast. And uh, I had dinner that night. I paid for it the whole night. You know, there was something too spicy, and I probably had too much. It's usually a combination of too much and too spicy. And I just said, don't you ever learn, beat myself up. Don't you ever learn, next year, even though the dinners are free, I'm not going to take them.
So you do learn. You do learn.
I do
So
learn, but it's often repeat, 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 repeat. Then I learn.
isn't
So,
that how our brains work though,
oh
right?
my
It's
God.
habituation. Yes.
Absolutely, I'm a slow learner for a smart girl. So, you know,
Yeah.
so that's
Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with intelligence, right?
it
It's a
does
different,
it because it's
no.
the emotion, it's not
Yes.
the brain, and
Right. Yes.
I want to
For sure.
keep more in the emotion now. So,
Yeah.
that's
So,
kind of how I it was a
well,
long journey.
a long journey. But I'm curious, like, how did you, because you started out saying, I'm a carb addict, and I'm wondering, like, how you got to that place. If you started removing things from this health
Yeah.
perspective of like, these things have got to go, at what point did it click for you? Like, ooh, this is addiction?
This is, yeah, oh no, it probably wasn't until about 10 years ago because addiction was just, alcohol. And then now we find so many other things. And my brother is involved in psychology, and we always try to give the correct definition of addiction. We're still not there in fact with ourselves, but yeah, we finally embraced it. Yeah, it is what it is. And
And did you do that because you heard somebody talking about carb addiction or food addiction or sugar addiction? Did you read a book,
oh
or were just
no,
conversations
then
with?
then
Yeah.
I met Jonah Flint a couple of years ago, and Rob Seifus. And this year I met Jen Unwin and Vera Tarman. And it just, we had this whole symposium was on addiction. And that was just last month. And it all started to come together.
What was your big takeaway from that then? Like, what was kind of was there anything that really made it click for you that you heard or witnessed, or somebody you
I,
spoke to and something they
it,
said?
it, it, I got it. And my doctor is very, he was one of the first doctors, Trocalagian, who took an addiction study before I started seeing him 2 years ago. So kind of that, and that his office staff did the first day of the convention, and then it was filled in by the others on both both those first days, that I really started looking at it and give myself a break here a little bit. And when I beat myself up, it's never good. So when I can forgive myself with addiction, and you asked me a wonderful question in your email about what would you wish you heard at the beginning of your addiction or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, at the beginning of
Just,
your journey, what did you need to hear?
yeah,
Yeah.
what I needed to hear as that 7.5-year-old child was that I was loved and that I was worth something. Because my whole life I was shamed. I was shamed by my doctors, even kind old Dr. LaRue, who said, you got to have a little less cream in your diet. Misguided, but he was a lovely man. That's, when I was 14. So I gained a little weight then, and then I took it off, all of it off that summer. And my parents were so proud of me. It's the only time I got validation was with my weight. Well, we don't care about your grade. What's your weight? And several of my cousins also got that message from their parents. It's not a way to be brought up. It's just kind of keeping you, as a woman, the limited roles.
Yeah.
I became a teacher. I put my ex-husband, I assisted my ex-husband through medical school. He was more important. He was more important to my parents. Um, I became known as Mrs. James, not my name, JoAnn. Not with what could JoAnn do? Oh, she was supporting the man until she had a family. Then I got divorced. And when I got divorced, my father, he was somewhat progressive for his day, said, now I want you to lead a corporation. Now I had no interest in leading a corporation. I went and got an MBA to please him. And then he wasn't pleased because I went into higher education, got my doctorate. Nothing. Until for some reason, I got to teach at Harvard for 2 years. That shut him up. And I wasn't even faculty. I was a teaching fellow. And I never heard a complaint again because he watched me teach and he watched how damn good I was. And then I let him go. He died shortly after that. And my mother, no, you're not as pretty as me, you know. So
Yeah, just so much
when she died,
to pass.
she just died a few years ago. She died.
Okay.
I just let it go. I let it go.
Yeah.
She couldn't hurt me anymore.
Right. Put that, yes, let it be where it was. And so you can move forward. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Um, uh, I did move forward, and wrong information. What with even good intent is so dangerous. We have to get the word out on this. I'm passionate about it, like yourself. We have to get the correct information out there. None of my doctors shame me now. If they did, I would fire them. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of it, it sounds like you've done a really good job of cultivating who your medical professionals are. I mean,
Absolutely.
Tropalagian, you mentioned Dr. Saivez, not that he's necessarily your doctor, but
He
like
isn't.
you're definitely cultivating these
I'm
medical professionals that,
growing an association of people I just really love to talk to. Eric Westman is wonderful, and uh, in every conference uh, has really new people that I can get to meet, and I just have stories to tell. But it's a good story, and it's a story of success. And now I'm living in Florida. The weather's good, and
yeah, you had said like you're living your best life right now for the last 10,
exactly.
11 years. Can you kind of talk about what life is like now? I mean, like you
I
said, you're
take
living in Florida, the weather's great.
I
What
take
what else? What should we know?
I take risks. You know, there were several careers I didn't choose, like TV reporter. So I decided I wanted to do a story. So I got to do it. I got to cover Harry and Meghan's wedding with the local crew from Orlando. I would have never done something like that. I would have made up a story. Well, what? I'm only an old lady who lives in the villages. No, they jumped at the chance for me to help them. So you never know. So then I started being a little more brazen, and I see what well, I'll tell you. I got on The Price is Right, and yeah, that 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 was really like a highlight of my life because I did it with my lovely grandmother, um, and I got to win several designer purses, then a trip to Switzerland. So I put myself out there, in other words. I don't stay in my house. I walk, I just kind of figure out what I want to do next. And then I started getting these podcasts because Tony Hampton wanted to put me on a podcast, which grew to several others. And I get to get my story out, and that's important, and that's got to continue. Um, and I love going to the medical conferences. I do 3 a year, and I budget for 3 a year. I'll be in San Diego in August, and I'm going to Sheffield in May to, yeah,
To the
my first
UK,
English, yeah, be my
yeah, to
first,
the public health. Yep.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
going to the public health one. Yeah, so those are my three for this year. I'm
Okay.
tempted to go to Denver in 2 weeks, but the budget won't allow it at
Yes.
this particular
Yeah.
time.
So you're taking more risks. You're getting out of the house. You're living your
I'm
life.
living.
Yes, you're
I
living.
Yeah, I ask guys out to lunch. So I've started to get more male friends only. Um, and
You also mentioned that you work a little bit.
I do.
What kind of work do you do these days?
Well, right now I'm a life coach. I'm a trained life coach, but right now I'm getting certified to be a wellness coach through the Nutrition Network. So I've got to finish up my first course, and that should be done next week. And then I've got two more to take. So I keep my brain active. I read, I listen to podcasts. I try to make sense of all of this chemistry that is well above my understanding, but I still show up and try to learn one thing. And I've yet to, I've got to go over the notes from Boca and put them in some kind of order. You have to not just listen to them, you have to work them. Um, and I do some speaking around the villages. We have a low carb club. Um, I'm in that. And I've shed a lot of things that aren't useful to me. I've really started focused on what's important to me and what isn't important. And that's where my energy goes, so that I have a lot of energy to do what's really important. And um, I've lost a lot of people in my life, and I've lost a lot of activities. Not going out to dinner. It's just limit yourself. And this place thrives on alcohol and on a lot of entertaining and eating bad food. So I had to give that up. That's all. But I'll go out to lunch. So, but that's it. It's just limit what's really important.
Yeah. So do you okay, so when we think about addiction and addiction recovery, right? And we think about the substance and or behavior that's occurring and like getting abstinent from getting it out in some way, shape, or form, or really reducing the amount, right? So like in a harm reduction approach,
Yeah,
sometimes we
yeah,
don't get all the way to zero, but a lot of people do, some people don't. But then there's like this other aspect of it where we really talk about the recovery piece of it, where we're addressing like that 90% of the iceberg that you can't see, right? Where it's like relationships and self-development and emotional management, stress management, craving management, living life like you're describing. Are there things that you've done in the last, decade or so that really have attributed to like your recovery? You seem like you've always been a person of like pushing yourself to grow and learn.
yes.
Has
That's
has
my
have you done
that's
anything different in the last 10 years
in the
specific to
last
like
10 years. No,
addiction recovery? Yeah.
it's the risk, it's the emotional risk taking. I'm never going to be in a room with a snake. It's the emotional risk taking. It's the putting myself out there, asking if I can help on something that I would think would either be fun or feed my growth. Yes.
That's
So
awesome.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, for my second podcast, I was listening to Fabulously Keto. Do you listen to Jackie Fletcher? And I said,
Never heard of
yeah,
that.
that's the next podcast I want to be on. And life threw us together on a Zoom call that and there she was. And I got on her podcast. Then they started to come after that.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah. So just
yeah.
taking these risks, continuing to grow, getting out there and living life. Has it been hard to stay away from those foods that were lighting up your brain like a Christmas tree? Like now that you recognize that was addiction, has it been difficult to say no? Has it been difficult to stay on this path that you're on?
It is during the holidays for me because I still have my behavior of making the big feast. And I didn't do as well this year. And that being said, I am on track. I just had two very good doctor visits on Monday. Uh, my most important with my wonderful cardiologist. And I'm fine. He says my LDL is too high. Um, I don't think it is, but we'll deal with it. And my hematologist, my anemia is now gone. Doubling up on beef that works wonders for your blood. So
Amazing. Yeah. So talk about the holidays. How do you manage to get through without sabotaging yourself or like falling completely off track and then not being able to get
Well,
back to where you want to
for the
be?
last 6 years, my brother has been here for the holidays. And he is actually, I realized I didn't do as well this year because he wasn't here. He fell in love. So he wasn't here, and then he quickly realized that wasn't the woman for him. So he and I have a routine every time he's here. He's here for about 6 weeks. He puts the kettle on at night, makes me tea. He waits on me hand and foot, which I love. And we watch something British. That's our routine. The tea, the cuppa, and we watch something British. And we will go to bed early, and it's fine. And uh, late afternoon and nighttime is the time I'm a stress eater. The mornings are, I'm good, and I'm good up until about 3 o'clock. And then I have to create an activity, and I'm going to redefine what that I'm in the process of redefining what my afternoon is going to be. And it's probably take myself out of the house, do some kind of physical activity, probably just walk around the lake. And I'm just going to get that set right. And I've told it everybody I didn't want to go out for my birthday. So let's not make it about food. Flowers would be lovely, but yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do. I want to get on stage and be a comedian. I would like Mick Jagger to call me and ask me to sing backup. I just put it's out in the universe. Um, Still waiting, like Mick, if you're listening. I'd like to be invited to the White House. You know, for my bucket list, they have to be things I can't pay for.
Yeah. So, okay. So, with that, thinking about that, does that at
Yeah.
all somehow, can you somehow use these bucket list items, these desires for those things to fill that time in the afternoon? Like, if you would rather be doing something else other than stress eating, what would it be?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I could be traveling anywhere. I do well when I travel. It's because there's no kitchen there. There's that kitchen is always there. So I could travel. I could just take a ride down to Orlando. I took a ride to Gainesville. I made a day out of going to the doctor. Uh, Anything. Get out. There's loads of things I want to see right here within an hour's drive of my house. Do it. Do it. You know? Uh,
Yes.
it
So, how
is.
will you remember that's what you want to do though? Because I know, like, if you're anything like
Yes.
anybody, right? Like, we're in that moment and we're like doing it, and then we wake up in the food or whatever, and we're like, this isn't really what I want to be doing. So,
Yeah.
how like will you remember, hey, I want to travel, I want to go see these things, I want to get out?
I want to read a book. Uh, I've got 8 books there I haven't started yet. I can't buy another one until those are read, and that'll take me a month. Yeah, I can do 2 a week, but I've been choosing to watch British television. So, I mean, there is a choice. I could turn the TV off, that's my distractor. I love British television. So, uh, but that's about it. Um, I'm happy. I've got things to do. I've got things to look forward to. I'm looking forward to my trip to England in in May. I'm going a day earlier so that I could just sit on the Thames and check myself into a hotel before I start my trip. Um, I love England. I just have to walk in it. I don't have to do a damn thing. I just love being there and being in the pubs. And I don't drink, so it's all friendship. It's all good conversation, good coffee, healthy food, and so that's my story with addiction.
Yeah.
And it's really new on the horizon for me. I am no way in any kind of authority on it, but it totally affected my life and the behavior of my relatives, and didn't do well for my family and my cousins, and a lot of us have issues. because of it. And we need the correct information out there. It's just, it has to stop with me. It has to stop with me. So,
So, Joanne, I normally end with that question, what did you need to hear when you were first starting? And you really kind of already answered that question, but I have a different question
oh, a
for
different
you.
one. Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you think is important for people to hear and know about? You're on, it sounds like you're pretty passionate about spreading the correct information, that people know that this is a thing. You know, what's kind of, is there a message that I didn't ask the right question to get
Oh
from you?
God, I wouldn't say that at all. But where I found my strength is, again, going back to the hospital, is when I could be vulnerable. And when I could be vulnerable, this was so out of my control that for the first time in my life, I surrendered to what was about to happen to me. That didn't make it any less scary, but there was a serenity that took over for the 2 days before my surgery. And when the Tuesday morning came for my surgery, my new birthday, October 9th, um, I was scared and I just rolled right into it. And the next thing I remember is my daughter's face looking at me. You lived. That was the pivot. That was the pivot. I chose to live. And don't be your own worst critic. It does just nothing good comes from that kind of fear. No good decision is made if it's a fear-based decision. That's fear of surgery. That's fear. That's fear of just taking a risk and saying hello to somebody, from something very simple to something very serious. Don't be afraid of it. It's just there to protect you. And
Oh, beautiful words. I mean, so many great takeaways from your
oh,
story.
well, thank you. And
Absolutely.
thanks for asking me to visit you.
Yes. Well, thank you for agreeing. And like I said, like you and I had not met. And it's so nice to meet new people and hear stories. I'm a big believer in increasing awareness and decreasing stigma around addiction in general, but food, sugar, carb addiction specifically. Um, because people don't talk about it, right? Or we do talk about it and then they say it's not a thing because how can you be addicted to food when you need food? Well, we're not addicted to all food. It's the
No,
hyper palatable, like the ultra processed, the stuff that is made to addict us. That's what we're addicted to, not the broccoli and the
no,
steak, but the
no.
potato chips and
It's
the candy bars.
it's even, doctors saying, well, you're on vacation. Indulge, have the dessert on the cruise. And I go, they're not even good. I don't, and I just, so what a weird thing for a doctor to say. She's not my doctor anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, you can't, you can't tell somebody to moderate. You cannot tell somebody, oh, just have it and everything in moderation. That drives me crazy. Wouldn't tell an
Agreed.
alcoholic to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Right.
but
Exactly.
that's
Exactly. Well, thank you again so much, Joanne. I
thank
appreciate
you.
you and the time that you've given today. And I hope that we get to meet in the future at one of these conferences. I'm
Yeah.
not going to Sheffield this year. I was in Bristol last year and I'm going next
Oh,
year, 2024, but I will not make it to the UK this year. But maybe one of the ones in the US, you never know. If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.